In this notes, we're diving into yet another method of all of these factoring to solve higher level polynomials. Today we're going to factor quartics. Now, the only way to factor quartics is if they're in the form where you see a fourth degree, a second degree, and a constant. All right, that's going to be the only form that we can factor these in. And let me show you how that works. If you think of our normal two parenthesis factoring, these two terms give you that x to the 4. Well, how do I get an x to the 4? Well, with an x squared and an x squared. These two terms make the 20. So the 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. How do we get them to add to be negative? Well, multiplying to negative, or multiplying to positive, adding to negative, means these are both negative, and they need to be a 4 and a 5. So really factoring quartics, as long as they're in this form, is pretty identical to factoring linear things. All you have to keep in mind is that you're dealing with the x squareds in your factors instead of x's. And now you solve them just the same. Set them both equal to 0. So your x squared is 4. When you square root, make sure you get your plus and minus so you don't forget one of your answers. Add the 5 over. When you square root, make sure you use your plus and your minus. So again, really not that different from normal factoring, just making sure you remember that you're getting x squareds instead of x's. So let's try this one. So again, x to the 4th comes from x squared and x squared. 36. Well, let's brainstorm what gives us 36. Well, 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9, 6 and 6. So we need to find the one that when one of them is negative will give us a negative 5x squared. So when we add them together, we need one of them to be positive, one of them to be negative. And if we choose a plus 4 and a minus 9, that will end up adding to negative 5, just like we need it to. So again, using those factoring skills, factoring something that will not go away. So now I'm going to set both of them equal to 0. So subtract the 4. When you square root a negative, remember you are getting an I with it. So square root of 4 is 2, but because you're square rooting negative 4, you're getting 2i, and you're getting your plus or minus. Add the 9, square root both sides. So I've got your plus and minus, and the 9 is a positive number, so when you square root it, you simply get 3. All right, and looking at our final example. X to the 4 come from x squared and x squared. That 4, so we either need 1 and 4 or 2 and 2. And I think 1 and 4 will give us what we need. And now we use the zero product property. After it's factored, we need that zero product property. So x squared is going to be negative 1. When you square root both sides, plus or minus, and you're just going to get I this time, because square root of 1 is 1, and with that negative, you get an I. Subtract the 4, square root, so we get plus or minus. Well, the square root of 4 is 2, but you square root a negative, So you get your I. And that's where you get your 4 solutions from. Plus or minus I, plus or minus 2I. So really all this is combining your skills of factoring and solving using square roots, two things we've done before. So nothing too difficult, just combining skills together. So in order to make sure that you can be successful on your practice work, again, please make sure you have this written down and then come and ask me if you have any questions.